The rain began before nightfall, as if the sky had decided that the day had lasted long enough. It was a fine rain at first, almost timid, the kind that soaks you without warning, and then thick, heavy, as if someone had torn the clouds with their hands. Eliana heard the noise on the tin roof and knew it would be a long night. The leaks already knew their way, one in the corner of the kitchen, another near the bedroom door, and the third, the most stubborn, right in the middle of the living room, where she had placed a dented aluminum basin that played a sad tune every time the water hit it. She had lived alone since she was 17. Now she was 23, and her body already carried the weight of someone who had lived twice as long. It wasn't a visible weight. Eliana was thin, with delicate hands and eyes that were too large for her small face. Her dark hair was always tied back in a loose bun, with strands escaping and falling over her forehead as if trying to hide something. Perhaps they did. She never talked about it. The house was at the end of a dirt road in the interior of Goiás, after a curve that nobody took without reason. There were no neighbors nearby. The closest place was Socoraldo's gas station, about 4 kilometers away. And beyond that, the small town of São Roque, with its houses with peeling paint and a church that rang its bell at 6 in the afternoon as if there were still someone waiting for God in that forgotten place. Eliana worked at Donatita's grocery store Monday through Saturday. She carried boxes, organized shelves, swept the floor, and served customers at the counter. She was poorly paid. She received less than she deserved, but she never complained, because she learned early on that complaining, for someone like her, was the same as asking to be replaced. Donatita liked to say that she was doing Eliana a favor by employing her. She said this in front of customers, like someone offering a coin to a beggar and expecting applause. Eliana listened, lowered her eyes, and continued working. Her silence wasn't submission, it was survival. That rainy night, she sat at the kitchen table with a plate of rice and beans and a glass of water. The old television was on, but without sound. She liked the bluish light the screen cast on the walls as if someone else were there. She ate slowly, not to savor it, but out of habit. Those who eat alone are in no hurry. Solitude teaches you to savor time along with your food. That's when he heard the knocking on the door. 3 dry, spaced-out, firm knocks. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't an animal. Someone was out there in the middle of the storm, knocking on the door of the most secluded house in that region. Eliana stood up slowly. Her heart raced, but her body moved calmly, like someone who has learned not to show fear. She picked up the kitchen knife and held it behind her back. She opened the door just enough to look in. There were 2 men, an older one with gray hair and a face marked by the sun, leaning on the shoulder of a younger one. The younger man wore a leather hat, darkened by the rain, a soaked plaid shirt, and boots dirty with mud. His face was partially hidden by the brim of his hat, but Eliana saw his eyes, clear, tired, with a pain that didn't seem to be just physical. "Miss?" said the older man, his voice hoarse and weak. "The car broke down there on the road. My son is hurt. We just need a place to wait for the rain to pass." Eliana looked at the 2 of them. The rain lashed mercilessly against their backs. The younger one could barely stand. Blood mixed with water trickled from a cut on his forehead. His eyes met hers for a second, and in that second she saw something she recognized. She couldn't name it. Perhaps it was the weariness of someone who has asked for help too many times and no longer expects to receive it. She opened the door. He didn't say, "Come in." He didn't say anything. He just made room and pointed to the chair near the table. The older man thanked him with a nod. The younger man limped in without looking around, as if looking was a luxury he couldn't afford at that moment. Eliana heated water on the wood-burning stove. She took the cleanest cloth she had and carried it to the young man. He was sitting with his elbows resting on his knees and his head bowed. And when she approached, he looked up. Up close, his face revealed more than he probably wanted to. An old scar on his chin, large, rough hands, calloused with evidence of hard work. And those eyes, green, deep-set, with a sadness that seemed to have always resided there. "Can I clean it?" she asked, pointing to the cut. He nodded. He didn't speak. She cleaned the wound carefully. Her hand was firm yet delicate, as if she knew that this man was not just a wounded body. He was someone who perhaps wasn't used to being touched with gentleness. He closed his eyes as she ran the warm cloth across his forehead. Not from pain, from relief. The older man introduced himself as Antonio. The younger one, he said, was Davy, his son. They were returning from a cattle fair in the north of the state. The car skidded on the wet road, hit a fence, and went down the embankment. Davy hit his head on the steering wheel. Antonio wasn't hurt, but he was weak. His body wasn't helping as it used to. Eliana listened to everything in silence. Then she offered what she had. Rice, beans, coffee. He didn't apologize for the simplicity. He wasn't ashamed of the house. He served the food with the hands that served Donatita every day. But there, in that kitchen, those same hands had a different dignity. Antonio ate with gratitude. Davy barely touched his plate. He stared at the basin in the middle of the room as if trying to decipher the sound of the drops. Eliana noticed that he wasn't the type to talk, but his silence was different from hers. Hers was protective. His seemed to be mourning. She tidied the room for the two of them. She put clean sheets on the bed and spread out a mattress on the floor for herself in the living room. Antonio thanked her, with tears in his eyes. Davy thanked her with a minimal, almost imperceptible nod, as if the kindness bothered him. In the early morning, Eliana woke to the sound of footsteps. Davy was on the porch, sitting on the steps, watching the rain that was already subsiding. She approached silently and stood in the doorway, unsure whether to speak or go back inside. He noticed. Without turning around, he said, "Sorry for waking you up." "He didn't wake up," she lied. "I wasn't sleeping either." They fell silent. The fine rain drew translucent curtains in the darkness. A frog croaked somewhere near the stream. The smell of wet earth was so strong it seemed as if the whole world had been washed away. "Your house is beautiful," he said after a while. She almost laughed. Almost. The house had leaks, stained walls, a door that wouldn't close properly, but she understood what he meant. It wasn't about the house. It was about what was inside the house. "I like it here," she replied. "It's not much, but it's mine." He turned his face to look at her. In the dim light, his face seemed younger, or perhaps more genuine, without the hardness he carried during the day. That's more than most people can say. She felt something stir within her chest. It wasn't attraction. Not yet. It was recognition, that rare feeling of finding someone who understands the weight you carry without you needing to explain it. The next morning, Antonio asked to use the phone. He called a mechanic in San Roque. The car would take at least 2 days to be repaired. Antonio looked at Eliana with embarrassment. She said it was no problem, and she said it with a naturalness that surprised even herself. During those 2 days, something happened. It wasn't a single event. It was a sequence of small, almost invisible moments that together formed something neither of them expected. David fixed the door hinge, without her asking. She found the door closing properly when she returned from the grocery store and stood there watching, as if it were the first time someone had done something for her without expecting anything in return. He chopped firewood. He piled it in the corner of the kitchen. He cleaned the roof gutter, which was clogged with leaves. The leak in the middle of the room stopped. Eliana removed the aluminum basin and stared at the dry floor with an expression that Davy couldn't read, but which, if he could, he would say was the face of someone unaccustomed to such care. He was also quiet during the day. He worked with his body while his mind seemed to be elsewhere. But at night, when Antonio slept, he would return to the balcony, and Eliana would go too. As if the two had made a silent agreement that this was the place where they could be who they truly were. On the second night, he told her, not everything, but enough. He said his mother had died when he was 12, that his father never recovered, that he dropped out of school to help on the farm, and that, since then, his life has been waking up, working, sleeping, and waking up again. He said he once had a fiancée, a city girl who thought it was nice to date a cowboy until she discovered that a real cowboy smells of sweat and cattle and comes home with a sore back and nothing interesting to talk about. She left one Sunday morning. She left the ring on the kitchen table next to a note that simply said, "I'm sorry, but I deserve better." He said that while looking at his own hands. Eliana felt each word as if it were a stone falling into a deep well. She didn't deserve more, Eliana said, her voice so low it was almost lost in the sound of the crickets. She deserved something different, but more is another matter. David looked at her. He lingered. He looked as if seeing someone for the first time, even though he had looked at her before. And in that look was a question he didn't ask, but that Eliana heard. "I've heard that too," she said, in different forms, but the same thing, that I wasn't enough, that I was too little. My mother left me with an aunt when I was 7. She said she'd be back. She never came back. My aunt raised me until I was 17 when she told me I was old enough to take care of myself. Donatita gave me trouble. The people in the city kept their distance from me. I learned to live with little, not by choice, for lack of options. She didn't cry as she spoke, but her voice trembled on a single word. Return. And that tremor said more than any tears could. David didn't touch her. He didn't say everything would be all right. He didn't offer solutions or nice words. He just stayed there, present. And that silent presence was the most honest gesture anyone had ever offered Eliana. On the third day, the mechanic called. The car was ready. Antonio got ready in a hurry. He missed home, his routine, his pets. Davi got ready slowly. He put on his hat and stood in the living room, looking around as if trying to memorize a place. When Eliana came out of the kitchen with a package of bread and cheese for the trip, he was standing with his back to her, running his hand along the door frame that he himself had repaired. "Thank you," said Antonio, holding her hands in his. "You have a heart this world doesn't deserve, my daughter." Eliana smiled. Her smile was rare and therefore beautiful, like a flower that blooms in dry land. David approached. He took off his hat. Without his hat, he seemed vulnerable, smaller, more human. "If you ever need anything," he began. "I know how to take care of myself," she replied too quickly. Not out of rudeness, out of habit, for protection. He nodded, he put his hat back on, and he left. Eliana stayed on the porch until the car disappeared around the bend. Then she went back inside, washed the dishes, swept the floor, and collected the sheets. The house returned to its usual silence, but the silence was different. Before, it was just emptiness. Now it felt like the absence of something that had once been there. A week passed, then 2. Eliana's routine remained the same. Grocery store, home, solitude. Donatita continued being Donatita, with her whispered comments and favors that were, in reality, commonplace. The residents of São Roque continued to look at Eliana as if she were part of the landscape, something seen without truly perceiving. But something in her had changed. It wasn't visible. It was like a seed that someone plants and that stays underground, invisible, waiting. She started looking at herself in the mirror in the morning and lingering a second longer. She started letting her hair down sometimes. She started saying no to Donacita about small things. An unarranged extra shift, a favor that wasn't a favor. Each no was a tiny earthquake, almost imperceptible, but one that cracked the walls she herself had built from the inside. One Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the night of the rain, Eliana was sweeping the sidewalk in front of the grocery store when a car stopped. It was a clean, black pickup truck with the shine of something new. A man got out on the driver's side. Dark suit, polished shoes, combed hair. Eliana didn't recognize him. She glanced politely and went back to sweeping. "Eliana?" She looked up, and then she saw, beneath the suit, beneath the neatly styled hair, beneath the shoes that had never stepped in mud, the same green eyes, the same scar on his chin, the same large hands, now free of mud but with the same calluses. "David?" He smiled, and his smile was like hers, rare and therefore precious. "I needed to tell you something," he said. Donatita appeared at the grocery store door with her arms crossed, observing the scene with that look of someone who assesses everything and everyone. She looked at the car, looked at the suit, looked at the shoes, and for the first time, she looked at Eliana in a different way, as if suddenly the invisible employee might have some value that she hadn't calculated. Davy didn't introduce himself to Donatita. He didn't look at her, he only looked at Eliana. "Can I take you out for coffee?" Eliana looked at the broom. She looked at Donacita. She looked at São Roque Street, which always seemed too big for her dreams and too small for her pain. "My shift ends at 5, she said. "I hope." And he waited. He sat in the pickup truck with the window open and stayed there in the Goiás sun, without complaining, without hurry, without impatience. Donakita came out twice to peek. The customers whispered. The gossipy women on the street drove slowly on purpose. Eliana worked all day with her heart beating at a rhythm she didn't recognize. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't fear. It was expectation. The expectation of someone who, for the first time, had something to look forward to. At 5 o'clock sharp, she took off her apron. She washed her face in the grocery store bathroom. She let her hair down, and she left. David opened the car door for her. A simple gesture that, for Eliana, was as if someone had opened a door she didn't even know existed. At the roadside cafe, a simple place with plastic tables and checkered tablecloths, he told the truth. "My father isn't just a farmer," David said, his eyes fixed on the cup. "He owns 3 farms, 2 cattle farms and 1 soybean farm, the biggest in the northern region. I take care of everything. I manage, I negotiate, I make it work. The pickup truck that broke down that night was the old one, the one I use in the fields. This one here," he pointed outside, "is the one for the city." Eliana remained silent. Her hands were in her lap. Her face was unreadable. "Why didn't you say so before?" "Because it didn't matter," he replied, "and because I needed to know." "Know what?" "If you were real." He explained. He spoke of the fiancé who left, of the women who appeared when they learned about the money and disappeared when they saw the routine, of the people who treated him differently when they discovered who he was. He said he had learned to hide behind the dust in simple clothes because it was the only way to know who was truly approaching him, and who was only approaching him for what he had. That night, you opened the door for 2 strangers in the middle of the storm. You tended to my wound. You gave them your bed. You shared your food. You didn't know who I was. You didn't know what I had. And yet, you treated me as if I were the most important person in the world. His voice faltered on the last sentence, not from weakness, for real. "No one has ever done this for me," he said. "Not like this, not without expecting anything in return." Eliana felt her eyes burning, but she didn't cry. Not there. Not yet. "I didn't do anything special," she said. "I did what anyone should do." "But it doesn't," he replied. "That's the point." The coffee grew cold between them. The sun outside began to set, painting the sky orange and pink as if the world knew that this moment needed a beautiful frame. "I have nothing to offer you," Eliana said, with an honesty that pained her. "My house has a leak. My salary barely covers the month. I didn't finish school. People here look at me like I'm invisible. You can have whoever you want." David stretched his hand across the table. Open, waiting, not demanding. "I don't want who I can have," he said. "I want who saw me when I had nothing to show for it." Eliana looked at that hand that had repaired her door, chopped her firewood, cleaned her gutter, that hand that could buy anything, but was there, open, asking only to hold hers. She slowly reached out her hand. Their fingers touched. And in that touch there was no promise of a happy ending, no guarantee that everything would be easy. There was only the raw and fragile truth of two wounded people who had found in each other a place to rest. David returned the next day, and the next, and the next. Always with the old pickup truck, the one he used in the countryside, as if to say that with it, he didn't need to be anyone but himself. He brought things, not expensive gifts, but things that showed he had paid attention. A roll of screen to fix the window she was tying, shut with wire. A package of coffee of the kind she had served that first night. A book she mentioned seeing in the window of the stationery shop in San Roque once, without imagining that anyone had heard. Eliana resisted at first, not out of empty pride, but out of real fear. Fear that it was too good to be true, fear that he would wake up one day and realize that she was just the girl from the tin house who didn't know how to speak in a fancy way or dress nicely. Fear that he would do what all the others did, promise and then leave. One night, sitting on the balcony, always the balcony, the place where truth resided, she told him this. She said it in no uncertain terms, unfiltered, without shame. "I'm afraid you'll leave." He was quiet for a while. Then he said, "I'm afraid you won't let me stay." And in that exchange of fears and that mirrored vulnerability, something was born that neither dared to call love for a time, because the word seemed too big. Or perhaps because they had both learned that true love doesn't need a name. It needs presence. Donatita was the first to change, not out of kindness, out of calculation. When she learned who Davi was, she began to treat Eliana with a false kindness that was worse than her former disdain. She called her dear, offered her time off, praised the work she had previously criticized. Eliana noticed, and at that moment she understood that the respect Donatita offered wasn't real. It was a reflection of the value Davi projected onto her, and that hurt more than the disdain. That's when Eliana resigned, without anger, without a speech. She took off her apron, placed it on the counter, and simply said, "Thank you for everything, Mrs. Sita, but I'm going to follow my own path." Donatita was speechless, not because of the resignation, but because, for the first time, Eliana looked her in the eyes. And in Eliana's eyes there was no anger, no resentment, no triumph. There was only a woman who finally saw herself for who she always was. David didn't ask her to move to the farm. He didn't ask her to change. He only asked one thing. "Let me be a part of your life, just the way it is." And she left. Antonio, the father, greeted Eliana as if he had known her for years. He embraced her tightly, with that embrace of an old man who has come to understand that life is too short for formalities. He whispered to her, when Davy wasn't listening. He came back from that night a changed man. "I don't know what you did, my daughter, but you gave my son back to me." Eliana cried there, for the first time in years, not from sadness, from something she couldn't name. Perhaps it was the relief of someone who had carried a weight alone for too long, and finally found someone who said, "You can let go." The tin house remained standing. Eliana didn't abandon it. He had the roof repaired, the windows replaced, the walls painted. Not with David's money, with the money he saved when he started working in the farm's administration, because he discovered he had a talent for numbers, for organization, for making things work. David discovered this before she did. He saw in her what no one had ever bothered to look for. The little house became the place they went when they wanted silence. They would sit on the porch, listen to the crickets, and gaze at the stars in the vast sky of Goiás. They didn't need to speak. The silence between them had become their own language, made of trust and everything they had already said when words were still necessary. During one of those silent moments, months later, David took a small box out of his pocket. He didn't kneel. He didn't make a speech. He simply opened it and showed it to her. a simple silver ring with a small stone that sparkled in the dim light of the porch. "I don't want to promise you it will be perfect," he said, "but I promise it will be true." Eliana looked at the ring. She looked at it. She looked at the house that no longer had leaks, at the dirt road that now knew the sound of a pickup truck that always returned, at the sky that was clear that night without a single cloud, as if even the rain knew it wasn't time to stop. She didn't say yes with words. She extended her hand, the same hand that opened the door on a stormy night for two strangers, the same hand that wiped the blood from a man she didn't know, the same hand that held a broom for years while dreaming of something she didn't dare name. He placed the ring on her finger. And there, on the porch of that simple house, at the end of a road that no one traveled without reason, two people, whom the world had tried to convince were not enough, chose each other. Not because they needed each other, but because, together, life finally made the right sound. Like an aluminum basin that stops catching drips. Not because the rain stopped, but because someone climbed onto the roof and fixed what was broken. Sometimes, at night, when David was asleep and the house was quiet, Eliana would go to the porch and stand there alone, gazing into the darkness. Not out of fear, not out of sadness, with a kind of silent gratitude, one that needs neither words nor prayers. The gratitude of someone who knows that life can be hard and unfair and silent, but that, from time to time, it sends someone to knock on your door on a rainy night, and that the only thing you need to do is have the courage to open it. She didn't know, that first night, that she was opening the door to the rest of her life. Nobody knows. We open doors every day without knowing what comes next. What made the difference wasn't luck, it wasn't destiny. It was the fact that, even afraid, even without anything, even being invisible to the whole world, Eliana chose kindness. She chose to open the door. And this time, the door did not close.